Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hesitant Homesteader. Today it's time to plan out the garden space. We're going to be drawing it out, sketching things, making sure that it fits into our garden space, and then we're going to be ordering our seeds that we don't have in our collection already, that we know that we want to try. If you're anything like me, when you look at the seed catalog, it's exciting and overwhelming a little bit because the pictures are just gorgeous. The food looks amazing and I just want to try everything. I would suggest that when you're just getting started in the garden, that you would just get your basics down. Get the things in your garden space that you know you really want to have for your family to just start out with. And then maybe just add a couple of the fun varieties that you've never seen before or that just look amazing. And then just grow from there. Every year add a couple of new things to your varieties. Last year we actually grew some purple beans, and while they looked really cool, we didn't love that they weren't stringless, so the kids were all peeling the string down them all of the time and kind of choking on them when they forgot to do that. So we probably won't grow those again. I thought that they were pretty and fun, but the kids were kind of annoyed by them. So we're gonna try something different this year. But it's fun to give it a little bit of variety and just try something new. If you're new to gardening, don't be afraid to just jump in. It seems like everything needs to be perfect and in place and you know exactly what you're doing to even attempt to do this. When I started, I felt like I knew nothing. And honestly, I had a pretty unsuccessful garden the first year. I had a few things that grew well, but our weeds took over. We planted things next to each other that really didn't belong together, and things just didn't do great. So we learned our lessons, and every year we're learning something new, what works, what doesn't work, and we're kind of taking notes of those things so that we do things differently. Another way that we kind of messed up, I would say, is that we planted a ton of things that were really viney. When we were planting and planning the garden space, it sounded really fun for the kids to grow things like melons and pumpkins and things that they were excited to have and to eat. But what happened is that we planted them on one side of our garden and they actually ended up vining all throughout the garden space, and they grew. The actual plant came on about 30 feet away from that. So not only did it just create a mess in the garden space, but our walkways became muddled. And so the kids didn't really know where they were supposed to step and where they weren't supposed to step, and things just got trampled. It was nearly impossible to get in there and weed. And so we're taking all of those viney type things and moving them out of our enclosed garden space and trying to put those someplace different this year. We are going to keep a couple things in there like cucumbers and some butternut squash, but we're going to be trellising them, and we'll show those to you in future videos, how we're going to go about building that and making a much more functional space for us. So today I'm just going to be sketching this out, making sure that we are fitting as much into our space as we can without it getting too cluttered and overwhelming for the space, because I really, really value nice, clean pathways where you're not stepping on the plant and trying to hop over things to get where you need to go. So just want it to be functional and clean and pretty and nice. So I'm sketching it out, trying to get that worked into the space as best as possible. So one of the things that we're going to be doing differently in our garden space this year is adding in a variety of flowers throughout the garden space and also around the perimeter of the garden. Now I've been doing a little bit of reading on this, and it seems that in addition to the normal benefits that we all know that calendula and echinacea have, that they're also natural pest deterrents in your garden space. So they especially, calendula is awesome around tomato plants, I'm told, because it keeps the tomato worms away. So I'm going to try to plant some within the tomato area. Now, don't be afraid to just jump in. If you aren't 100% confident in yourself, or even if you're like 10% confident like I was when I started, you just have to start. Start with something. Just even if you have a pot of tomatoes or just a little raised bed where you're going to get started, you're going to learn something every time that you grow. So I would say just start doing what you can in the space that you have, and don't be intimidated by it. My first year, my garden was actually pretty unsuccessful. I had a lot of things that didn't grow well. I had a lot of plants that were choked out by vines, a lot of things that I really was hopeful that would grow, and they just didn't do that great. So every year I'm learning something new. I'm getting the timing a little bit better, I think, as to when the seeds need to actually be started. I think that in the past I have either started them too late, and then it didn't really extend my growing season like I wanted it to, or I started them too early and they actually, when you plant them too early, if they stay in their little pots for too long, they start to get leggy and just kind of droopy. They don't have the space and the nutrients that they need to get any bigger. And so at that point, they either need to be transplanted or they need to be moved outdoors. So I have done that a couple of times where they just don't look very healthy and not doing really well. So this year, I have looked at the Farmer's Almanac and kind of calculated when the best time should be to plant our seeds based on when our last frost is supposed to be. So that's obviously an estimate. It's not anything that's set in stone, but we're gonna go based on those dates this year and see how it turns out. It's all just kind of a guessing game. I know that last year, a lot of us based it on that date as well. And it was wrong, and people had plants that were just dying left and right, and we were all just waiting for the weather to turn so that we could get our stuff outside. But we lost a lot of plants because the weather just didn't turn like it was supposed to. So where we live, that just kind of is the trend. So we just kind of have to go with the flow. We're excited to get outside though and get started. Every time that the sun is shining and it's a little bit nice out, we're just anticipating all of the things that we're going to get started doing as soon as we can. Today was kind of one of those days. It's sunny, it's still cold outside, but it was warm enough that we were able to go out and not be miserable. Yesterday was a different story. We couldn't catch our breath when we were walking outside because the wind was just brutal. So today was a nice break. So one of the things that you want to look at when you're starting your garden planning is that you look at companion gardening charts that you can find online. There's several of them on Pinterest that you can look at, but it gives you a nice chart and it shows you what things grow well together, that's kind of friends in the garden, and things that just don't do that great. We have made that mistake in the past as well. We just grew things together that aren't necessarily friends. And so they just didn't do as well as what they could have if we had put them in a different location within the garden space. So like I said, we are still learning and we have so much more to learn. We're actually referring quite frequently to a couple of books that I bought, one of which came from Baker Creek Seeds, and I will show you here. It's called the Heirloom Life Gardener. And in here it has all kinds of information, great pictures, and really clear and easy explanations of how to do things like pest control and keeping things out of your garden. I've learned a ton just from going into diving into this book a little bit. This year, one of my goals is to learn how to save seeds. I've done just a little bit of that in the past. The easy ones though, the ones that naturally just dry out on their own, like beans, you just leave them and they dry out and then you can save them. So I have done that, but I want to learn more about the art of that because it's really cool when you get these great seed catalogs and these collections that you have, like your own library of seeds to pull from every year. So I want to be able to share those with friends and people when we have a bigger collection. Another really cool book that I got my hands on is called Welcome to the Farm, and it's by Shay Elliott from the Elliott Homestead. Her photographs are amazing in here. It is just a beautiful book to even look through. But what's really awesome about her book is that it walks you through the seasons of the garden. And so another one of our goals for this year is to get more than one growing season out of our garden space. So I want to do a spring, summer garden, and I also want to do a fall garden and make this as productive and fruitful as we can, and get as much out of our garden space as possible this year. So her book really walks you through how to do that and when you need to be planting things and how that goes down and what plants do well at different times of the year. So her book has also been an awesome resource for me. When it's the middle of winter and it's cold, it's one of my favorite things to just cozy up on the couch by the fire with my seed catalogs and my books and just kind of daydream about what the garden's going to do this year. That's a pretty big stretch for me because in the past I have been I've always wanted a garden, but I've been so fearful of actually producing something. I don't know, it seemed really intimidating to me to just get started, but now that I've gotten my feet wet a little bit and I feel like I have a grasp of some of the stuff, it's not quite as intimidating to just try something new. So this year I'm hoping for even better produce coming out of our garden space as whatever has before. Last year we had a pretty decent year. I was thrilled with what we were able to produce. But we're hoping for even more because we really want to provide as much of our food source as possible on our own. We don't want to have to rely on grocery stores and other people to grow our food, just as much as we possibly can. Not that it's like we have to grow everything, but I love knowing where our food comes from and I love knowing that we grew it ourselves. It's a really cool process to just know that you took a little tiny seed and brought food to your family. So I would encourage you to just get started this year. Look through some seed catalogs, get online and order a couple of them and just give it a try for yourself. There's nothing to be afraid of. You might be out a few bucks from ordering some seeds, but really you're gonna learn a ton. So I don't think it's a waste of your money at all. So let us know what you try. We would love to hear how your gardening adventures are going. And if you have any tips for us, we would love to hear them because I still have so much to learn. So until next time, thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a crazy adventure so far and we know that we have a long ways to go, but we are super excited for what's in store. So thanks for hanging out with us. Until next time.